You buy a bag of Skittles in New York. Then you buy a bag of Skittles in London. Same logo, same rainbow, same taste the rainbow slogan, but flip the packs over. Read the ingredients. They're not the same candy. The American bag is colored with 8 artificial dyes. The British bag is colored with beetroot, turmeric, and radish concentrate. Same brand, same company, 2 different recipes. Now here's the part that should bother you. Mars, the company that makes Skittles, M&Ms, Snickers, and about half the candy aisle, didn't reformulate Europe because British consumers asked nicely. European regulators forced their hand. Then, in 2016, Mars looked American parents in the eye and made the same promise here. They didn't. By 2022, 2 federal class action lawsuits had been filed against Mars over what was inside the American bag. By 2025, a state attorney general had opened an investigation into whether Mars had misled American customers about that broken pledge. That investigation is active right now. How did the same company make one version of a candy for European children and a different version for yours? By the end of this, you won't read a grocery shelf the same way again. Let's start with what's actually on the package, word for word. US Original Skittles, sold today, Red 40 Lake, Yellow 5 and Yellow 5 Lake, Yellow 6 and Yellow 6 Lake, Blue 1 Lake, Blue 2 Lake. 8 petroleum-derived synthetic dyes. Until last year, there was a 9th, titanium dioxide. 2 federal lawsuits and a quiet reformulation. We'll come back to it. Now the UK bag. Same brand, same basic candy experience, same rainbow. The colors come from beetroot, grape skins, black currants, carrots, turmeric, plus concentrates of radish, sweet potato, hibiscus, and a plant called carthamus. That's the actual printed ingredient list. Both bags side by side. No interpretation, no spin. So the question isn't, are they different? They're objectively different. The question is why, and that answer starts with a study so damning the European food industry has never recovered. In 2007, researchers at the University of Southampton ran the experiment that European regulators had been waiting for. Funded by the UK's Food Standards Agency, published in The Lancet, the team brought in around 300 children, 3-year-olds and 8 and 9-year-olds. Just average kids, not children with existing behavior or attention diagnoses. They put them on a diet free of artificial dyes, then gave them identical-looking fruit drinks every day. Some contained a mixture of artificial food dyes, some didn't. Nobody, not the parents, not the teachers, not the researchers, knew which kids got which drink. The result? Kids who drank the dye mixtures showed measurably more hyperactive behavior, increased movement, impulsivity, inattention in every group tested. Those dyes are now called the Southampton 6, Yellow 5, Yellow 6, and Red 40. 3 of them are still in your American bag of Skittles today. Europe took that study and built policy around it. The FDA looked at the same study and decided to do nothing. What Europe did next is the part most Americans never heard. It started with one specific sentence, printed in the same font on every package in every aisle. July 2010. The EU's new food additives regulation takes effect. Any product sold in Europe containing those Southampton dyes now has to carry a warning label on the label of every affected product. The exact wording may have an adverse effect on activity and attention in children. Imagine being Mars. You sell a candy aimed at kids, and a regulator just told you every bag needs a behavioral warning addressed to their parents. Mars reformulated, quickly, quietly, across multiple products. Out came the synthetic dyes. In came beetroot, turmeric, paprika, grape skin extract, carrot concentrate. The candy looked the same. Sales held steady. The only people who could tell were the ones reading the ingredients list, which means Mars proved something they would later need very badly to forget. They proved Skittles work without the petroleum dyes. They proved most consumers wouldn't even notice. And then they kept selling the dye version in America. So what's actually wrong with those dyes? You've heard the names, the specifics are worse. Start with the Southampton 6, the dyes from that study. 3 of them are in your American bag right now. Yellow 5, also called tartrazine, Yellow 6, sunset yellow, and Red 40, the most used food dye in America. All 3 made from petroleum. The FDA has required Yellow 5 to be called out by name on US labels since the 1980s, not buried under artificial color like most additives, because the agency's own rulemaking acknowledged it triggers allergic reactions, hives, and asthma symptoms. They didn't ban it, they just made manufacturers warn you it's there. For Red 40, the Center for Science in the Public Interest has flagged concerns about contamination with benzidine, a known human carcinogen that can show up in trace amounts as a manufacturing byproduct. We don't know how much because the FDA doesn't require routine independent testing. Then it gets worse. Blue 2, indigatine. Animal feeding studies submitted to the FDA showed brain tumors in male rats at high doses. The agency reviewed the data, decided the link wasn't conclusive enough, cleared it for food. Read that one again. Brain tumors in rats, cleared for food. And then there's titanium dioxide, the whitener that was in US Skittles until last year. In 2021, the European Food Safety Authority concluded it could no longer be considered safe in food. Their reasoning, in their words, the particles have the potential to induce DNA strand breaks and chromosomal damage. The EU banned it in 2022. Mars kept using it in American Skittles for 3 more years. 3 years when European regulators had already said it wasn't safe. We'll come back to the why. It eventually ended up in federal court. But before we get to the lawsuits, in 2016, Mars saw all of this coming. They told American parents they'd fix it. Then they made a quieter decision when nobody was watching. In February 2016, Mars made a public announcement, big press release. CEO Grant Reid declared the company had heard consumers and would remove all artificial colors from every single one of its food products within 5 years. M&Is, Skittles, Starburst, all of it, globally. They reaffirmed it in 2019. The CEO went on record saying, "Our consumers are the boss." Then 2021 came, and Mars quietly reversed course. A statement quietly appeared on Mars's website. It's still there right now. The company said it had discovered, quote, "Consumer expectations regarding colors in food differ widely across markets." It would continue to prioritize removing artificial colors in Europe, but it would not be removing all artificial colors in other markets. Translation: we figured out we don't have to, so we won't. The difference between the European market and the American market wasn't science. It was the warning label. The Center for Science in the Public Interest called it a shocking reversal. A Mars spokesperson told the trade press they found, "The majority of our US consumers appreciate the current vibrant palette." The US consumers, the ones who never saw the same warning label, the ones whose kids ate the version the company privately knew was different. Mars made a promise, then they walked it back. In July 2025, the Texas Attorney General's office opened an investigation into whether Mars had misled American customers about that pledge. That investigation is active right now. But the AG investigation wasn't even the first time Mars's American formula ended up in court. That had already happened 3 years earlier, over the ingredient I told you we'd come back to. In July 2022, a California consumer named Janelle Thames filed a class action lawsuit against Mars in federal court. The suit alleged that Skittles were unfit for human consumption because of the titanium dioxide content. It cited the European Food Safety Authority's 2021 finding on DNA damage. And it cited Mars's own broken 2016 pledge. A second class action followed in Illinois federal court a month later. Mars's response, quote, "While we do not comment on pending litigation, our use of titanium dioxide complies with FDA regulations." That's it. No defense of the science, just, it was legal. Both lawsuits were voluntarily dismissed by the plaintiffs in November 2022. The cases never went to trial. They didn't establish anything legally. But they forced the ingredient into the national conversation. National news covered every major filing. CSPI added titanium dioxide to its list of additives consumers should avoid. And then Mars did something interesting. By the end of 2024, the company said titanium dioxide was gone from US Skittles. They didn't issue a press release celebrating it. They didn't apologize. They didn't acknowledge the customers who'd been eating it for 3 years after the EU banned it. They just stopped. If titanium dioxide was fine, why remove it? If it wasn't fine, why was it there in the first place? And why was it in American Skittles for 3 years after European regulators called it unsafe? Mars hasn't answered any of those questions in public. Now, Mars and the rest of the food industry have one standard defense for keeping these chemicals in American food, and another company demolished it 9 years ago, using nothing but spices. The food industry's standard line is that natural alternatives don't work at scale. They're too expensive, too unstable, too hard to source. Consumers won't accept the change. Kraft Mac and Cheese made that argument much harder to defend in 2016. For decades, Kraft's iconic blue box used Yellow 5 and Yellow 6. the same Southampton 6 dyes, to get that bright orange color. After a Change.org petition picked up over 365,000 signatures, Kraft announced they'd reformulate. They replaced the synthetic dyes with paprika, annatto, and turmeric. Those are the same plant-based colors Mars uses in UK Skittles. Same ingredients. Another giant food brand proved 9 years ago that this could work in mass-market American food, sold to families. The new formula hit shelves in December 2015. By March 2016, Kraft Heinz had sold over 50 million boxes. Their marketing campaign was literally called the world's largest blind taste test, with the hashtag "didn't notice." 1 million boxes a day. They flipped to natural colors. Sales held. The product looked the same. The only people who could tell were the ones reading the ingredients list. So when Mars says American consumers appreciate the current vibrant palette, what they really mean is, we tested whether we could keep using the cheap dyes. And we could. Kraft proved you can reformulate at scale. Mars proved they can do it in Europe. The only thing missing in America was the regulatory pressure to make them. Then, last year, the FDA finally moved on something it had refused to touch for decades. For 50 years, the FDA's official position was that these dyes were safe. They reviewed the Southampton study and declined to act. They reviewed petitions in 1985, in 2008, in 2011, and declined every time. As recently as 2024, agency statements were defending the safety of approved color additives. Then, in January 2025, the FDA banned red dye number 3 from food. They'd known it caused cancer in lab rats since 1990. They banned it in cosmetics that same year, but they kept it legal in food kids eat for another 35 years. Manufacturers now have until January 2027 to reformulate. 3 months later, in April 2025, HHS and the FDA announced they were moving to phase out the rest of the petroleum-based dyes. Red 40, yellow 5, yellow 6, blue 1, blue 2, green 3. Different FDA materials cite different deadlines, somewhere between end of 2026 and end of 2027. But the direction is clear. They're all on the way out. The science didn't change. Red 40 isn't more dangerous now than it was in 2010. The political pressure changed. California passed the Food Safety Act in 2023. The School Food Safety Act followed in 2024, pulling 6 dyes from public school meals. Texas, Hawaii, Virginia, West Virginia introduced their own bills. Nestle, Hershey, General Mills, Kraft Heinz announced phase-outs. Mars is one of the major holdouts, which is why Texas opened the investigation. So when the FDA finally moves, 15 years after Europe, they're not following the science. They're following the states. And the states followed the parents. The agency that spent 50 years defending these dyes is now moving in the opposite direction. The cost of defending them finally got higher than the cost of letting them go. But none of that helps you today. The deadline is at least a year out, maybe 2. The bag on the shelf today is unchanged. So until then, what's in your kitchen is up to you. The same recipe split that gave you 2 different bags of Skittles runs through the entire American grocery store, like a fault line. Kellogg's strawberry Nutri-Grain bars in the US, red 40, yellow 6, blue 1. Same product in the UK, beetroot red, annatto, paprika extract. Fanta in Britain is colored with pumpkin and carrot extract. Fanta in America is red 40 and yellow 6. Same brand, same product. Different ingredients depending on whose kids are eating it. So here's what to do. Flip the package, always. The front of a box is marketing. The ingredients list is law. The names to look for: red 40, also called Allura Red; yellow 5, tartrazine; yellow 6, sunset yellow; blue 1, blue 2, green 3, and red 3. That one's already on the way out, but it's still on shelves until manufacturers reformulate. If you see these in a product aimed at children, cereal, candy, sports drinks, fruit snacks, kids' yogurt, frosting, there is almost always a dye-free version somewhere on the shelf. Sometimes from the same company, sometimes literally next to it. The natural color versions exist. They just don't get marketed as hard because the dye versions are cheaper to produce, and the manufacturer is betting you won't read the back. Once you start reading the back, you can't stop. Bright colors, quiet substitutions, Different rules for different countries. A bet that most people will never turn the package around. That's not a Skittles problem. That's every aisle in the store. And wait until you see what's in some of the most popular cheese brands. I broke down the 8 that are fake and you should stop buying immediately, and the 4 that are actually safe. That video is on screen now. If you learned something from this video, please like and subscribe.